for the CGL part, and yes, in the ending we'll be having MCQs as well. So without delaying time, let's start with our lecture, and I'm waiting for you all in the comment section. So who all are present here, please give me your attendance and kindly like this video and share it. Yes, we are starting with the force and motion. First of all, if I'll talk about, just a second, I have another one, just a second. Yeah, so I was talking about force and motion. So if I'll ask you what is force, so what you will say, you can take any of the example. For example, if I am playing cricket, fine, while playing cricket, if someone is bowling me, what I'll do, I'll just try to hit the ball and go for the six, correct? That's what I have done over there. I have actually applied force using what, via bat, so that that particular ball will reach boundary, correct? Apart from that, I can take another example as well, where I can talk about pushing of a car. So whenever I talk about force, this means here we'll be having several other categories. So first of all, we'll be discussing about this gravitational force. So what is this gravitational force? Force, where we have already discussed, where we are talking about those push and pull movements. Here, if I talk about this gravitational force, this is actually asked in the examination in two ways. First thing is that we must be aware of gravitational force is a type of force in which anything which is present around us, the thing it is that it must have mass. Another thing is that here, if two objects are present, they always keep on applying force on each other, and this particular force is known as gravitational force. So let's have a look. Any two bodies attract each other by the virtue of their masses. The force of attraction between 2 points mass is represented by F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. Now you must be wondering, sir, what is this? Here, what I'm talking about, if I'm talking about two of the objects, fine. So let us assume any two objects. First object, second object. Now this object must be having some mass. Let us consider this is m1. If I'll talk about this object, let us consider its mass is m2. Now there must be some distance between them, correct? So here we are having a distance of r. So if someone will ask me about this force, so how can I give that force? I'll say that, sir, this force will be equal to, this is actually gravitational constant, where I am multiplying both the masses, and whatever distance is there, I am squaring it. So F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. This is actually telling you what is the amount of force that is being applied. So this was about gravitational force. Now, if I'll talk about acceleration due to gravity, now what is it? See, when we talk about acceleration, we are aware of what? Here, we are talking about the rate of change of velocity. But since there's a term that is added, here is what? Acceleration due to gravity. So it's the gravity which is actually making a body to accelerate. So acceleration due to gravity, we have its fixed value for the earth. We consider it as 9.8 meter per second square, and for the calculation purpose, we keep it 10 meter per second square. But before starting this discussion, we must be aware of what is acceleration, what is speed, what is velocity. These things are to be made clear, correct? So yes, we'll be starting with that, but since I am unable to get your comments, I have to check it. What is the issue? So I'll just check it and then continue. Fine. So yes, I was talking about those terms which we are not aware of, correct? Actually, I am unable to get your comments. That's why there's some delay. I'll just let you know once I get those comments. Fine. So yes, I was talking about some of the important terms. First of all, we were talking about acceleration due to gravity. But before that, we must understand what is this acceleration exactly. So acceleration is nothing, it is actually the rate of change of velocity. But now there's a term that is known as velocity. Now what is this velocity? Whenever we talk about velocity, we must remember here we are including the magnitude. Here we are including the magnitude. Along with that, we need direction as well. But when we go for the speed part, we only require magnitude. Now, this thing we have discussed yesterday, correct? What we discussed yesterday, when we are talking about this magnitude and direction, this means we are talking about vector quantities. These things are important, so we must be aware of these. If I talk about vector quantities, so vector quantities are the one that is including the magnitude and direction both. But if I talk about scalar quantities are the one which are including just magnitude, there is no such direction involved. Fine. So yes, now how will I calculate? Okay, so we have Aman here, Happy here, Ishan, LTM. So good evening everyone. So sorry, I was actually not getting your comments, so now your comments are visible, so I can start conversation with you. So if you have any sort of doubt, just let me know in the comment section. Fine. So yes, we were discussing about this vector and scalar quantity. Now we are already aware of. If I talk about speed, that means what? I'm talking about the unit, that is meter per second. This means what? Meter means what? Distance. Speed, second is denoting what? Time. This means for calculating the speed, I will go for distance upon time. But what's the difference with the velocity then? These are looking almost same. Now, for understanding this, we are having one more thing. What? Let me tell you. When I talk about speed, I'm talking about distance, correct? So we have the relation of speed with the distance, that is distance upon time. But for the case of velocity, we have another concept. Now what is this concept? Here we are talking about displacement. So for calculating this velocity, we need displacement upon time. But now there's one more issue. Sir, what is exactly the difference between this term, that is distance and displacement? As we can see that speed and velocity are only varying with these terms. Actually, this time is same. The only difference is coming with this distance and displacement. So in order to understand this concept, we have one question. What is that question? Let's have a look. For example, there is a person who is living in Noida. Then this person who is living in Noida needs to go to Delhi, and then he has to go to Shimla, for example. So now I am writing the kilometers from Noida to Delhi. Let us assume this is the range of 50 kilometers, and from Delhi to Shimla, let us assume it's the range of 550 kilometers. Now my question is, there are two different questions. First question is, the person who was there in Noida actually starts moving from Noida, goes to Shimla for a trip, comes back through Delhi, and then finally comes at Noida. So here my question will be, what is the total distance covered? My first question is, what is the total distance covered? Again I am saying, starting from Noida, he is going to Delhi, then Shimla, again from Shimla to Delhi and Noida. So you have to tell me the total distance covered. And another question will be, you have to tell me the total displacement that has taken place. So from here, this concept will be clear. What is exactly difference between distance and displacement? Let us see. Who will give this answer? Yes, and everyone is requested to kindly like the session and share it. Yeah, what's the difference between them? Waiting for the answer. If I talk about the distance and displacement, what is the difference between them? Always remember, if I talk about this distance and displacement, here for its better clarity, we'll discuss that when we are talking about displacement, this is the shortest distance between the initial point and the final point. Simple. So it is the minimum distance between the initial and final point. So what we were saying, he is starting from Noida, going to Delhi, going to Shimla and coming back at the same point. So what is the shortest distance between the starting and ending point? Obviously the answer is going to be 0. But if I'll talk about distance, here the person was starting from Noida, he was going to Shimla, and from Shimla he was coming back. So if I'll calculate the whole distance, yes Ilma, that's totally correct. So if I'll talk about the total distance from Noida to Delhi was 50, from Delhi to Shimla was 450, that means 500 kilometers were covered here. But he has also actually reached back at the same starting point. So here when he'll come back again, he'll cover 500 kilometers. So the total distance that was covered is actually 1000 kilometer. And when we are talking about the displacement, it is still 0. So Ilma, you are absolutely correct, and everyone else who has joined this session, kindly like it and share it. So if there is any sort of doubt between these terms, distance, displacement, speed, velocity, acceleration, if there is any sort of doubt, please let me know so that we can proceed with the force part now. Fine. So okay. Now we have already discussed about the acceleration due to gravity, and we have understood what? We have understood about the value that was 9.8, correct, meter per second square. Now I'm talking about gravitational force, that is the value of G. What will happen if I go to, we can take the example of hills also over there. So I'll give you that example, Ilma. Just a second. Okay. So we were discussing about hills, correct? Now what happens if there's a person who needs to go from one location to another from a hill? Fine. And let us assume this is this location. Now if someone will ask me about the distance, so what I'll do, let me write, this is point A, this is point B. So for the better clarity, I'll be changing another color. If I have to calculate the distance, what will I do? Here, Ilma, we have to measure this part, that is this red structure. We will be calculating this whole distance, only then our value will come out. But if I talk about the displacement, what we need to do, we have to just check the shortest distance, and this one will be the displacement. So here when we are going on a hill, we need to go like this. We are aware of that. We have to move in such a manner that it actually takes more time. And if we build a bridge, we get that particular distance covered in a short period of time, correct? So yes, if I talk about this yellow color line is actually a distance. But if I talk about displacement, this blue color line will be about displacement. So displacement is actually the smallest path, and this distance is actually the longer one. Simple. I guess, Ilma, your concept is clear now. So yes, I was talking about the value of G. So it actually decreases with the altitude and decreases with the depth. Now if I talk about this, increases with this part. So if I talk about this poles, and this we can assume as an equator. So the value of G varies. When we are going towards the pole, the value of G is increasing. When you are coming towards the equator, the value of G is decreasing. So here what I can say, that, so when we will talk about weight now, if I'll talk about weight, so at height what will happen? At height what is going to happen, that is, at poles what is going to happen, since the value of G is increasing, there must be mass, there must be some mass m that I am having. So let us assume my mass is m. But when I'll go towards the pole, the value of G will increase. So I'll say G plus. So this means my whole weight is going to increase. But if I'll go towards the equator, the value of G will decrease. So what will happen? My weight will be m into G minus, that is my decreased weight would be there. So it actually depends at which location we are. So we'll just have a look over here. Just a second. Yeah. So if I'll talk about the gravitational force, so the value of G below the Earth's surface is G dash is equal to G into 1 minus h upon Re, where this G is actually gravitational acceleration. H is the height of the point below the Earth's surface, and Re is exactly the Earth radius. Here, in short, I'll say the value of G with an altitude, that is, I'll talk about height over here, it is G dash is equal to G into 1 minus 2h upon Re. So here, now before moving forward, is there any sort of doubt that is there in your mind? If there is, please let me know. Is there any sort of doubt that is left? All cool? If it is okay, let me tell you. Now we'll discuss about Kepler's laws, and there are 3 Kepler laws. Kepler has given laws regarding these planetary motions. So what is the first law that he has given? The first law states that all the planets revolve in elliptical orbits with sun at its focus. Just have a look. This is sun. If I talk about, okay Ilma, fine. If I talk about its path, just have a look. Here we are having an elliptical path, but here we have taken the example of Earth. So it's not only the Earth that we are talking about. We are talking about all the planets. So all the planets are actually revolving around the sun and they are following this elliptical path. So this was the Kepler's first law. So here stating that all the planets revolve in the elliptical orbits with the sun at its focus. If I'll talk about the second law, so second law states that the planet moves in its ellipse so that the line between it and the sun placed at a focus sweeps out equal areas in equal times. So this second law is also known as law of equal areas. So whenever you are asked about this law of areas, remember we are talking about Kepler's second law. Similarly, we'll talk about the third law. Third law states that the square of the time period of a planet is equal to the cube of semi-major axis of its elliptical orbit, which is given by this formula, t square upon r cube is equal to 4 pi upon gm. So this was all about Kepler's law. Now, we were discussing about gravitational force, correct? So let's have a look how this gravitational force is actually helping us out. So first of all, who all are there right now? Kindly give your name so that I can start conversation with you all. Yes, so class was quite late, I know, but is there any sort of doubt? If there is, please let me know. Okay, so I was talking about gravitational force. The law of gravitation is also applied for the functioning of the satellites. Now these satellites, you can just have a look. These are the satellites which are revolving around the sun. Now what kind of work they are doing? For the weather forecasting. What? For weather forecasting. Apart from this weather forecasting, there are other works as well. What kind of work? If, hello Sana, how are you? So yes, Sana, Ilma, every one of us, we actually love seeing matches, correct? Cricket matches. And we love watching live cricket matches. Live matches where live telecast is there. So there are several satellites which are actually working for this. Now, which one are they? Can you name them? So we have polar satellites and we have geostationary satellites. Where I'll talk about the orbits of this geostationary satellite, it goes to 36,000 kilometers. For polar satellite, that range is 1,000 kilometers. So here, these satellites play a very significant role and they are very useful. So actually it is asked, via which vehicle these satellites are actually launched. So we have several vehicles where we talk about LMVs, correct? So those vehicles are the one, and from the location of Sriharikota, they are actually launched. Okay, so we'll move forward with this. What is escape velocity? So this is the Earth. Now we have to launch a rocket over here and we want to send any of the rocket towards the moon or towards any other planet. So what we need to do? There must be the range till that particular location. The Earth's gravity must be acting. But when we want to move our satellite or our rocket out of this Earth, we need to cross this area, correct? So so you don't like live class? Okay, fine. So live classes are more important now. Okay, Ilma, fine. But that was the answer on the next level. Okay, cool. So I was talking about the rockets. When they are crossing this orbit, they require minimum velocity, and for the Earth, that minimum velocity is actually 11.2 kilometer per second. Just imagine about this particular velocity. What is the velocity? In 1 second, in just 1 second, this rocket will reach 11.2 kilometers. Just think, even your eye will take more than 1 second to blink in a proper manner, correct? And within just your clicking of your eye or just flicking of your eye, you will be reaching 11.2 kilometers. So it is that speed or that velocity. So this is the velocity which is actually required in order to escape this particular part of the earth where there is no such gravity more which is acting from the earth part. So yes, the velocity which is required to escape the earth's gravitational pull is known as escape velocity, and this is the value for the escape velocity of the earth. Okay, next, if I talk about electromagnetic force, so what is it? It is acting along the line joining the particles. So if Q1 and Q2 are the particles of the are the charges of the same nature, the force is repulsive. Otherwise, the force will be attractive. What they are saying? Hello, Nena, how are you? So yes, I was talking about the charges. Let us assume there are two charges. One is Q1, another is Q2. Fine. Now, it is the same concept. So we have discussed about this concept earlier as well. And when we will be having Hindi classes, I will go again with those Hindi explanation in depth. But right now, for the English part, I'll just tell you. Here you can talk about the attraction between the, yeah, okay. So what I was talking about these charges. So you can relate these charges with the, what I'll say, we can talk about the husband or wife, or even we can talk about the boyfriends and girlfriends. So here, if I talk about the opposite charges, they are attracting each other. If we will talk about the same charge, they are going to move away, correct? So yes, I am not going to the depth at that part right now, but try to understand these charges, if they are of the same nature, they'll move away. But if they are of opposite nature, they'll come together. But what is that force exactly? That is F is equal to Q1 Q2 by R square. Now we have discussed about it. What is this? R is actually the distance between these two charges, but there's one more value. And what is that? I'll write over here, just a second. 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. So this is, in this manner you can calculate out the force. So how you are going to calculate out the force? You can calculate out with, yeah, Nibba Nibbi also, or you can talk about Chapra Chapri also. Fine. So yes, all those part you can include here, but I'll not go in that part right now. So yes, their value is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 upon R square. So this is the value where I have already told you, if the charges are of same nature, they are going to move apart. If they are different, they'll be coming here. Okay, so let's talk about nuclear force now. So nuclear force is exerted only if the interacting particles are of protons or neutrons or both. These forces are largely attractive and short ranged. Now here comes an important one, very important part. The question comes, if I talk about the weak force, weakest force of these fundamental forces, we were discussing about fundamental forces, correct? So the weakest force which is there is which one? So the weakest force, Ratan, okay sir, okay Ratan, fine. So if I talk about the weakest force, the weakest one is what? That is your gravitational force. Weakest one is gravitational force. If I talk about strongest force, let us see who will tell this. Strongest force. Now don't tell me that, sir, this Chapra Chapri's force is the strongest one. What is going to be the correct answer? Ratan, Nena, Sana, Ilma, Megha. What will be the correct answer for this? And everyone who has joined the session, kindly like it. So I was asking about the strongest force. Which is the strongest one? And I assure you that those Nibba Nibbi one is not the real one. So yes, gravity is the weakest and nuclear is the strongest. Absolutely correct, Ilma. Totally correct. If I talk about the strongest force will be a nuclear force which we have just discussed. Correct? Okay then. Fine. So let's move forward now. Next. Here is the nuclear force. So it is exerted only if the interacting particles are protons or neutrons or both. We have just discussed about it. These forces are largely attractive, but the only issue is that they are short ranged. Okay. So this was all about nuclear force. Now let's talk about friction. Friction. A very important part in our life where because of the presence of this friction only we are able to move. Because of the presence of friction only I am able to actually write on this board and make you all these things understand. Now how? What is it exactly? Let's understand about it. So first of all, the force that is exerted by the surface as an object moves across it is known as friction. Still you must be thinking, sir, what is this? Let us take an example. If I'll talk about this pen, if I'll keep this on my hand and if there is no such friction which is there on my hand, without any friction this pen will not stay here. Without any friction I'll be unable to understand, I'll be not able to stand over here. I am standing here, I am moving, because what will happen? Yes, the pen will slip or if there would be no friction on the surface, even I would slip. Fine. So yes, so there's some force which is actually exerted by the surface as an object moves across it. So if there's a surface, here's the object that is kept. So surface, I'll represent it with the red part. If this object is moving in this direction, this means frictional force is acting in the opposite direction, just opposite of each other. Now, here, if I talk about this friction, friction is actually of three different types. The first one is static, second is limiting friction, and third one is kinetic friction. So what are these? One by one, let's have a look at it. First of all, static friction. So just have a look, there's a box that is kept. Here's the gravity that is acting over here. If I have applied any of the force, this means this box will tend to move in this direction. But as already told you, when I am applying the force, there would be a frictional force. It is again a force. It is again a friction. No, Ilma, that's the wrong concept. Please remember, there actually what happens when we are using the oil, at that time, because of the presence of the lubrication, the frictional force is actually decreasing. Fine. So there's a difference between two. Friction nahi hota would be wrong term. But yes, you are trying to give the correct answer, but still that is not correct, because frictionless surface is actually a myth. That's not possible. Now I'll be giving that example as well. Let me continue this sentence first. When I'm applying the force on this box, I'm trying to push it. Obviously there would be static friction, which is coming from the opposite end. So here, it is actually opposing force which acts on a body when it tries to move over the another, but actual motion has not yet started. For example, the best example would be, I am trying to push this board. Fine. When I am trying to push this board, this means this board must be applying some pressure, some reaction on me, correct? Newton's third law. But this board is not moving. So before moving of this particular box or this board, the condition which is there, that is known as static friction, because from the name itself it is clear we are talking about the location, that is we are talking about the object that is actually static in nature right now. Although we are applying force, but static friction is not allowing it to move. So this is static friction. Now if I talk about limiting friction, so force that comes to play when a body is on verge of moving over the other body. There was a box, it is almost about to move, that is actually a limiting friction. But if I talk about this kid playing over here on this swing, so the opposing force that comes to play when one body moves over the surface of another, this is known as kinetic friction. Just have a look. There's a boy who came from here and he's sliding. Since he's sliding, this means in this condition, there's an object which is actually there on another one, and both of them are actually in such a condition that one of the object is actually moving, correct? So this is the same thing that is given here. Opposing force that comes to play when one of the body is moving over the surface of another body. So we are talking about one body, that is this boy, is moving on the surface of another body, that is this swing. So here we'll say that this is actually a kinetic friction, which is of two types. One is sliding friction, which we have seen this sliding friction, and another one is the rolling friction, where we'll talk about the wheel or any of the box. Just have a look. Here we have an inclined plane where we have kept box in such a manner that this box has started moving forward. So here when it is moving forward, here we are talking there is an acceleration, and obviously there would be some friction which is acting in the opposite direction. True. So here's the force which is there in the opposite direction, that is known as sliding friction. So when a body slides over the surface of another, this is known as sliding friction. So is there any difference between them? Is there any doubt in these three forces? Ilma, yeah, that's correct. So if there is any doubt, let me know so that I can resolve that and move forward. Now I will talk about the rolling friction. When a body rolls over the surface of another body, let us take the example of any of the ball, whether it is football, whether it is basketball. If I am just trying to rotate it, it is moving in the forward direction, that is acceleration is there, and there must be some friction which is opposing it. Okay, Ilma, fine. So the friction which is actually opposing this is rolling friction, because the ball was actually rolling, correct? From the name itself we can get this point cleared. What? When there is a ball that is actually rolling, there is the acceleration in the forward direction. Now what will happen? Here would be friction which is acting just in the backward direction, the opposite of direction of the force. So yes, this is the rolling friction. Next, if I'll talk about the examples, it is easier to roll a body than to slide. Why? because sliding friction is always greater than the rolling friction. Uh, yes, I was talking about the frictionless part. Okay. Ilma, I'll tell you about one of the question which was asked in 1999. It was from IIT Roorkee. At that time, actually, there was no joint entrance examination. Different IITs were conducting their examinations of their own. So there was a question actually which was asked that time. I'll just tell you about that. If there is a surface, which is actually frictionless, fine, there is no such friction, and there's a man who is standing over here. There's a man who is standing over here with a stone in his hand. Now the question was, he needs to move forward. Now there were 4 different options, and without giving any options, I want the answer from you. He's having stone in his hand. Now he needs to move forward. How can he move forward? And again I am saying, this is the surface which is frictionless. There is no such friction, and we are aware of friction is needed in every part of our life, whether when we are sitting, whether when we are moving, we need friction in all the cases. True. So yes, I'm asking about this question where there's a stone in the hand of this particular person. Hello Braj, how are you? Good evening. So Braj, actually I have asked the question. I guess you might have missed this. There's a person with a stone in his hand, and I'm asking, he needs to move forward, and this surface is frictionless. So how can he move? Can you give me this answer? Yes, Ilma is saying then he cannot move actually. But please remember, if I'm talking about the stone now, what he can do actually, he can throw this stone backward, because we are aware of whenever we are applying a force, there is a friction which is acting upon in the opposite direction. True. So here what can happen, when I'm applying the force in this direction, and this is a frictionless surface, so in this manner he'll be able to move forward. Fine. Now Ilma, you asked me about फिसलता हुआ जाएगा. That is a different thing. But he'll be moving forward. Correct. Now there's a one more question. Actually, Braj, there was a question that was asked by Ilma. Ilma was asking me, sir, what if we use oil? By using oil, does friction increase or decrease? So what is going to happen? See, frictionless surface will not be there. That's totally okay. Now I'll give you an example, Ilma. In the morning, let us assume this is our home. Fine. And what has happened? Here there is a oil spill. By mistake, you are oiling actually here, and by mistake oil spilled. Now you forgot and you are actually going to clean that up. Till then what happened? Brother came and he just after putting his leg, what happened? It's very obvious, heel fell down. Why this happens? One more thing. Just after the time when mother is actually cleaning the clothes or something like that, or when we are washing our clothes, at that time that particular bathroom's area gets slippery in nature. Correct? We may slip at that time. So yeah, that has happened now. Yes, so this has happened now. So in this condition, what is actually happening? This surface is now becoming is now actually having lesser friction. Why? Because there's a oil spill. In the similar manner, if I'll talk about the machine parts, in the machine parts, why we oil them? We actually oil them so that there's a less friction. If there would be lesser friction, then the machine would be moving in the proper manner. Raj, we'll be having another classes. Don't worry. From the next coming week, we'll be having one more class with the Hindi part. But here, this is the English section, so we have to discuss it in the English part because some of the candidates are there from the South India. This is the special channel only in which we are discussing in the English, all the subjects. But don't worry, it would be better for you. You will be able to understand English. And apart from that, from the next week, we'll be having one more session in which we'll be having discussion in the totally Hindi part. Fine. That would be pure Hindi actually. Okay, let's get back to our point now. So we'll talk about the application of friction. Ball bearing is actually used to reduce the rotational friction. Now where we have seen this ball bearing? In your cycle, there's, when we talk about a cycle, now it seems as if it is punctured, correct? But Still, the location where there is spoke over there. Now this part, when you will open it now, you will get some small balls. So I'm talking about those ball bearings. So ball bearings is used to reduce the frictional force. Then for walking, whenever we walk, if I'll talk about this as shoe, when we are walking and when we are putting our shoe over here, this means we are trying to put force in the backward direction. Whenever you will try to move, now try this. What you will do, you will actually try to push your foot backward so that you can move forward. So this is the condition because of which you are able to walk. If this surface would be slippery in nature, which we have just discussed, without that you cannot walk. Apart from that, applying brakes in the vehicles, all these are the examples of friction. Now, there are two things which are actually asked in the examination. One is this. If I'll make a tire, I'll use another color to explain this. There is some threading which is done. You have seen those gaps. Why are these gaps actually given? There must be some reason of giving those gaps. Why are these gaps given in the tire? Apart from that, if you will have a look at the sole of your shoe or your slipper, just have a look at the bottom side of the sole or the slipper, you will get something like this. Why is it so? There must be some reason of that, correct? So what is that reason? The reason is that if there is this threading done, because of this there would be the increase in the friction, and because of this you will prevent yourself from slipping, or your bike or car will not skid actually. Fine. So this threading is doing what? They are actually increasing the friction so that you can easily walk. Okay. So this was actually the application of friction. Now there's an example official application where we have live paid courses with the test series, free subject wise and topic wise quizzes with the report card, job alerts, admit card, examination dates, free exam wise PDFs and practice set PDFs. All these things just at a single platform. Go with the Exampur official application. Just type Exampur over there. Click on install button. Click on the open part. Start registration and start using it. Now there's a question. A person is hurt on kicking the stone due to what? Is it inertia, velocity, reaction or momentum? Let's see who gives this answer. Ilma is saying pens में भी होता है rubber लगा देते हैं. That's true. Okay. So I'm waiting for the answer from everyone. So I've started asking the questions. I need answer from everyone. Wherever doubt is there, please let me know. Answer. Okay. So there was a question. A person is hurt on kicking the stone due to dash. So we'll take an example. Whenever we are talking about this example, you can talk about any of the example. For example, I am pushing this board. It is not moving. Correct. Why? Because whatever action I am doing, there is a reaction which is given from this wall or the board. That is, it is equaling each other. What it makes us remember, it is telling us about the third law, Newton's third law, which states that for every action there is always equal and opposite reaction. So Ilma, here option that is C would be correct, that is reaction. So whenever you are kicking a stone, what is happening over there? Whenever we kick a stone, at that time you are doing action, but there was a reaction which was given from the stone, correct? So yes, option number C will be correct. So in the morning we have discussed about this example, remember? Okay, so a body with uniform motion, it can be accelerated, can't be accelerated, always accelerated, remains unchanged. So we have discussed about acceleration. Remember, what is acceleration? The rate of change of velocity. So here, if I talk about a uniform motion, that is a body is moving with a uniform motion. At this time, can it be accelerated? It can't be accelerated, can be accelerated, always accelerated, remains in the uniform velocity. Who will give me this answer? Okay. So you are not there. Okay, fine. So yes, waiting for this answer. Now here, when I'm talking about the uniform motion, what I'll do, if I'll change the direction, now what will happen? When direction will be changed, this means there would be change in the velocity. And when there is change in velocity, we say what? The rate of change of velocity is actually acceleration. Therefore, we will say that a body with uniform motion can be accelerated. Fine? Yes, that's true. Yeah, correct, Hilma. Next. Which of the following force is a virtual force? So before going on this part, I have an explanation. Please remember. There are two different type of forces. One is centripetal, which is actually existing in the reality. Another one is centrifugal. Now centripetal force is actually that force which tends to act inwards, where we can talk about any of those particular bike races which we have seen. When there is a bike race, you must have seen that the biker who is actually racing, he leans sidewards towards the center. You have seen that. Why? So that he doesn't fall down. Yeah, so pitty force is centripetal force. Absolutely correct. So whenever we are talking about the force that is acting inwards toward the center, that is your centripetal force. And centrifugal force is the one which is acting outwards. So there's a difference between two. Fine. So yes, there was a way in which I have actually told you. When you were a child, mother used to do pitti, correct? And she used to say, beta center में ले आऊंगी, इतना मारूंगी ना center में ले आऊंगी. So there, that was the term which can be related here. So Pete kar, we bring it in the center. Fine. So centripetal force is the force that is actually acting towards the center, and centrifugal force is the one which is actually acting outwards. So here centrifugal force is the correct answer, which is actually a virtual force. It is not existing in the reality. Next, when a body is immersed in a fluid, then force acting on it is dash. When a object is immersed in a water, when an object is immersed in a liquid, what will happen in this condition? There must be some weight, correct? This weight will act downward. Others, I am waiting for the answer. Hello HR, good evening. So you're quite late, huh? How are you? How are you? So yes, here, if there is anything which is there in the liquid, what will happen? If I try to push that thing in the liquid, there would be a force, that is buoyant force or the upthrust, which will actually tend to move upwards. Sir, soap में ऐसा क्या होता है कि उससे सब साफ होता है. Now, if I talk about the soaps and detergents, just a second, I'll just let you know. First of all, let's finish this part. So here, there is a force that is acting, that is upthrust. So we can have a look. There's upthrust and weight, that is both of them are acting. So here option D, that is both A and B would be the correct answer. So Sahil has joined us. Hello Sahil, how are you? Yes, next question please. Cream gets separated out from the milk when it is churned. This is due to what? So there are four forces which are given, where we have already discussed about the gravitational force. We have understood centripetal and centrifugal, right? So let me write for you. Till then I want the answer from everyone. Centripetal was the real one and centrifugal was the pseudo force. This was pseudo force. And the centripetal force tends to act inwards towards the center. And the centrifugal tends to act outside the, that is just in the opposite end, that is outside the center. So yes, here if I'll talk about this part, it is separating because of what? So that would be your centrifugal force. Please remember, cream gets separated out from the milk when it is churned. This is only because of centrifugal force. Do not forget, it is important one. It is actually asked in the examination. Next, Newton's first law of motion gives the concept of what? Is it energy, work, momentum or inertia? Now, there's a term that is momentum. You must be wondering what is it? In a simple language, I'll tell you, amount of motion in a body is actually known as momentum. So amount of motion contained in a body is momentum. We are aware of work, energy, correct? Yeah, there's a new term which you must be wondering what is inertia. So it's the virtue of a state of rest or motion, where if a body is in a state of rest, it will be in the state of rest. If it is in the state of motion, it will be in the state of motion. So there's a Newton's first law actually, which tells us if a body is in a state of rest, it will be in the state of rest. If the body is in a state of motion, it will be in the state of motion until and unless an external force is applied on it. That is, jab tak, or I'll say until any of the force is applied, till then if body is moving, it will keep on moving. If it is stopping, then it will keep on state of rest. So here, when there is an external force, only then it will either stop or move. This is actually about inertia. So yes, option number D, that is inertia, is the correct answer, and that's Newton's first law. Next, a person dropped a ball from a train moving with a uniform speed. An observer standing on the platform observes it. What will be the path observed by the observer? So will it be rectilinear, circular, parabolic, or none of them? So let me tell you, what are these paths we are aware of? What? When there's a person who is sitting in the train, when he is dropping the object, this means if train is moving in this direction, that object will also move in this direction. So this means this is what? This is horizontal direction. But what will happen? There's a gravity also that is acting. So this gravity will actually tend it towards itself. That means whatever object is there, it will actually fall down in this manner. And this path is actually what? This is your parabolic path. So yes, whenever any of the object is thrown out from the train, it will follow the horizontal path. Then the gravity which is acting will take it towards itself. So yes, this path will be parabolic in nature, and yes, option number C is absolutely correct. So there's the last question for the day. The question is, the motion of the wheel of a bullock cart while moving on the road is an example of dash. So we have understood about several things. When we are talking about the rotatory motion, this means we are talking about rotation. When we are talking about this oscillatory, this means we are talking about a pendulum which is moving to and fro, correct? But if I'm talking about the translatory motion means we are talking about a motion which is there in a straight line. So yes, just have a look at this question and just tell me, whenever you're talking about any of the car on the road or bullock cart, it is having what? Which kind of motion? From the name itself, it is clear. Yes, that's true. So it would be what? It would be translatory and rotatory both. Translatory means what? In a straight direction. Rotatory, it means it is rotating. Correct? So okay then, all these were the important ones. Now tomorrow, that means day after tomorrow, when we'll meet, we'll come up in the morning with the previous year SSC's question, and in the evening we'll be having theory plus MCQ. So we'll be meeting day after tomorrow in the morning between 12 to 1. That is, it would be afternoon for you all. Okay. So okay then, bye bye. Please take care, and yes, like this video and do not forget to subscribe our channel. Okay then, bye bye. Please take care.